What's up, fight fans? Welcome to my channel. This is Johnny, and today we're going to be going over the statistics that nobody talks about when mentioning the world's best pound-for-pound fighter. Is it between Naoya Inoue or Terrence Bud Crawford? Guys, in no way is this video meant to compare the guys in the ring. We do not expect a fighter who started his career at 109 pounds to fight a guy who's fighting this coming August at 154. What we are going to go over today, though, in this video is the Ring Magazine's most recent updated pound-for-pound list that's causing quite the stir. The big shuffle and the big move has been Naoya Inoue topping the mountain and replacing Terrence Bud Crawford at the #1 spot. We do know boxing, I say this all the time, is a sport of what have you done for me lately? Inoue is the fighter who's fought most recently. He's coming off a knockout victory in Tokyo, Japan against Louis Neary, and we have not seen Bud Crawford fight since July 29th of 2023 against Errol Spence Jr. When we talk about both guys' careers, we have to talk about undisputed. They're both undisputed in their respective weight classes. If I were to pick a side or create an argument or narrative for one or the other, with Terrence Bud Crawford, you have a guy who's dominated at 135 pounds, 140 pounds, 147 pounds, and his most recent fight against Israel Madrimov is going to be for the title at 154 pounds. What does that tell us? It tells you that this fighter wants to keep challenging himself in multiple weight classes. When we look at legacies when a fighter has long been retired, that's something that the writers, the columnists, guys like myself will talk about. Did the fighter move up? Did the fighter move down? Did the fighter stay? And how was that fighter successful in all the aforementioned categories? Now, when we talk about Naoya Inoue, he is the man at 122 pounds, and he has been comfortable there, and most recently, the last few years of his career, he has stayed there. When we talk about his height, 5'5", same height as Gervonta St. Davis, the body types are different. If there is a knock on Inoue, and I'm not knocking him, but if there is, that narrative would be then he isn't taking many risks in this stage of his career. For being a lightweight fighter, he is at the tail end of his career, because we know as the lighter fighters age, the first thing they lose is their speed and reflexes. This is why heavyweight boxers or heavier fighters are able to have longer careers, because the last thing to leave is the power. Now, when we talk about Inoue and his challenges moving up, a lot of people want to see him go up to at least 126 pounds to see what he could do with those champions in that division. But for this specific video, I want to first talk about that pound-for-pound list, and then we'll go over both Bud Crawford and Inoue's most recent career. We'll compare and contrast, see where they are, and at the end, I'll leave it up to you guys, like always, to have you pick who you think the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world is. Now let's talk a little bit about the Ring's most updated list. I'll keep this brief because I want to stay on track with the Japanese monster and Bud, but we'll quickly go over 1 through 10 and I'll read it to you. #1, they have Inoue, who replaced Crawford at 1, who is sitting now at 2. You have Usyk at 3, Alvarez at 4, Beterbiev at 5, Bivol at 6, EJ at 7, Tank Davis at 8, Bam Rodriguez at 9, and Nakatani at 10. That's 1 through 10. I could do a whole separate video on what you feel that list should look like, but rather than harping too much on that pound-for-pound list, let's talk a little bit about what Naoya Inoue has been up to. Inoue is 27-0 with 24 knockouts. He has a career 89% knockout to win ratio. He is not only the #1 super bantamweight in the world, he is now the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He's 31 years old and he's from Japan. The orthodox fighter stands at 5'5" with a 67-inch reach, and his adoring fans call him the Japanese monster. He last took on last weekend Louis Neary, who was 35-1, knocked Neary out in the 6th. Marlon Topola's knockout in the 10th. Stephen Fulton, who came in undefeated, Inoue knocked him out in the 8th. Paul Butler, knockout in the 11th. Nonito Donaire, knockout in the 2nd. And when you hear that 89% career knockout to win ratio, when you see how technical Inoue is, you did see him get dropped. First time in his career last weekend against Neary, but how he went about getting dropped, that doesn't bother me too much. It wasn't like he was on the back foot. It wasn't like he was exiting. He put himself in the meat grinder, in the danger spot, had his guard down, was a bit reckless, and got dropped. So when fighters do that, I can't hold that against him. I love a good dog fight. I love a guy who will throw caution to the wind and brawl. But what you saw after he got dropped for the first time in his career, then you got to see his greatness. He locked it up, he tightened it up, he went after Neary, knocked him down a few times, and then got him out in the 6th. Now let's take a closer look at Terrence Bud Crawford. Bud is 40-0 with 31 knockouts. He has a career 78% knockout to win ratio. He's currently ranked the #1 fighter in the world at 147 pounds. We know he was undisputed at 47 and 40. The 36-year-old American is a southpaw fighter standing at 5'8" with a 74-inch reach. He is taking on Israel Madrimov this coming August in LA. Madrimov is undefeated. He last fought against Errol Spence Jr. last July, knocked him out in the 9th. Errol was undefeated. He knocked out David Evanishan, who was 29-3. He knocked out Sean Porter, who was 31-3, and he knocked out Kell Brook, who was 39-2. Another great stat about Bud Crawford, let's think about it. A crazy stat about Bud Crawford dating all the way back to the John Molina fight leading up to the Errol Spence Jr. knockout. He's knocked out 11 straight opponents, so his knockout to win ratio isn't as high as Inoue's at 89%, Bud is 77%. But 11 knockouts in a row as you get older, as you're moving up in weight classes. So he's not only dominating in new weight classes, he's also knocking them out. This is why the Madrimov fight is so exciting for me. Look into Madrimov a little bit more. He has an extensive amateur career. He's undefeated. He's a champion. He's going to be there to get hit, but he also has the skills to make Bud come to him. So we'll see if Bud chooses to counterbox Madrimov or puts him in the blender and goes for the knockout. And we'll see if Madrimov sits in the pocket and wants to trade with Bud and see if he still has power at 54. When we're talking about Inoue and Terrence Crawford, and we're talking about the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, the only way we could really answer this question is we'd have to ask ourselves, who would you take in a street fight? That's how I answer this question. All in all, guys, you let me know who your answer is. Leave it in the comment section below.